Waiting for everyone to log on. Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to BEDC's Business Sustainability and Continuity Funding webinar. We've put this webinar on as a result of us releasing the aid package, the 24 million aid package this past Monday. And we really wanted to make sure that businesses were applying successfully. They understood the application process, that they were clear with regard to what BEDC needs in order to process an application, and actually how we can work with you for your business success. So we will be having a multitude of webinars just to support businesses through this process. So I'm going to go through the agenda, and I'm here with my colleagues, Helena Otterbridge, who is our Business Data and Policy Analyst Officer within the Office of BEDC. And then also I have Ray Jones, who's the Director of Finance, Data and Administration. So they will be my co-presenters for this webinar this afternoon. I just want to lay out the agenda for everyone that is listening in and viewing in. So as I said, I've introduced the presenters. I'm going to give an overview of BEDC. I'm going to go through the key features of the actual aid package that we put together. I am going to discuss the funding documents requirements, as well as our business profile and the fees, and then what submission information we need. And then I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues to discuss what we consider to be the real key part of the application process of financial statements, so that you as businesses and entrepreneurs can understand why we need that information, how we use that information, and how that information is a benefit to both you as the entrepreneur and business owner and ourselves at BEDC. So I'm just going to turn off Kalina and Ray, and when their part comes on, I'm going to add them back in. Okay, so just very quickly, what BEDC does. We have been established since 1980. Fundamentally, we provide advice and support to Bermuda's local small and medium-sized businesses. We provide general business and technical advice. So even if you don't come for a product, you can come for us for business advice. We administer various direct lending in our microloan programs. We also have a guarantee program that has been the formative program of BEDC. We have provided thousands of guarantees to businesses who have received bank financing. And essentially that is if a business doesn't have enough security or collateral in order to get their bank loan approved, we will act as a guarantor. We do entrepreneurship workshops and events. We think it's important for business owners and entrepreneurs to improve their skills with regard to how to run a business or how to start a business. And so we have a pretty active regime with regard to workshops. And then we also put on events to highlight entrepreneurship, to allow entrepreneurs to connect to each other, and to help entrepreneurs to develop new relationships that may be of benefit to their business. We run and manage 3 economic empowerment zones throughout the country. They are located in Northeast Hamilton, St. George's, and Somerset. And basically, those programs focus on jurisdictions within the island that may need some additional oversight or incentive to help them to actually become more viable economic locations. We provide tax reliefs and duty deferment reliefs on various programs. We issue vending licenses for those that are micro entrepreneurs, who are peddlers, who are desirous of testing a concept or idea before going into a formal shopfront location. And then we also partner or we arrange vendor markets to help those businesses to be able to connect their their products to consumers. We offer a customs letter of credit program to help retailers be able to import their products and have some time before they have to pay their duty back. We have a product for new startups to encourage new entrepreneurs or people to think about starting new businesses in Bermuda. And that is a payroll tax relief program for new startups. We, as you know, or you might not know, we have created a space for startups to actually validate their business idea and grow that. And so we have an incubator program called Enterprise Bermuda. And we also have a growth program called Streetwise MBA. So it helps businesses with regard to the startup phase and then also the growth phase of their business. And then we also have, we believe in order to complete the ecosystem in Bermuda, it's important to focus on youth and exposing young people to entrepreneurship as a viable career choice. And so we have a variety of youth entrepreneurship programs. And the one that we're particularly proud of is called the Summer Student Entrepreneurship Program that runs in the summer. And we seed young entrepreneurs to actually start and run their businesses throughout the summer. So I thought it was important to just give you a highlight of what we do. And of course, the most recent product or service that we offer is this COVID-19 relief program that we will go into today with regard to how can you submit a successful application. So the funding package that was announced on Monday, and I would say for those that don't have the documents, it is attached in the handout portion of the webinar. So please feel free to download the 5 handouts that we have attached today. I would advise you to do that before we end the webinar because you won't have access to them once the webinar closes, and we would have to then email that to you. But I would also say that all of the information that we presented today is also available on our website at bedc.bm. So the Sustainability and Continuity Funding Program consists of 2 portions. The first portion is BEDC providing direct loans and grants to businesses. Providing direct loans and grants directly to businesses. That is the sorry, I was just looking at someone's question about they can't hear. So you should be able to hear me if you turn on the speaker portion of your microphone. I have everything on, my microphone is on, my web camera is on, and I'm sharing the actual screen. Okay, so as I said, the $12 million aid program package, or the actual overall aid package is actually $24 million. It is comprised of $12 million that is in direct funding from BEDC to businesses, and that consists of a loan portion and then a grant portion. So if you are approved for funding directly from BEDC, you will get a 50% loan, and then you would also get a 50% grant of your total amount. So essentially, your loan would actually be reduced by 50%. It is available to all businesses island-wide, but we have segmented out vendors and businesses located within our 3 economic empowerment zones, as opposed to just regular small and medium-sized businesses elsewhere on the island. And businesses have the ability, if they are approved for funding, to engage in repayment up to 42 months. The interest rate is actually 3.5% for small and medium-sized businesses. So we actually reduced our overall interest rate for our funding products by 1.5%, which is a pretty significant decrease if you compare, first of all, the interest rate and then the decrease to the financial institutions. For the easy businesses and vendors, it is an interest rate of 3%. Interest-only payments can also be applied to these direct loans and relief grants. And this can be anywhere from the first 3 months to the first 6 months as needed. So everyone will go on an interest-only payment once they start the repayment phase. The repayment phase will only start 3 months after the disbursement of funds. So you won't pay for the first 3 months after you receive the funding. And then the next 3 months will be interest only at a very low interest rate. I think we did some calculations, and that can range anywhere from $5 to $30, depending on how much fund you're allocated. And then if you need to have your interest only rates extended another 3 months, then you can do so. And our aim is to actually process and approve and distribute the funds to the successful applicants within 10 business days of a complete application. It's important to note a complete application. Our preference is to receive all of the documentation at once, complete, so that we can just get on with processing the application. If there is a piece that's missing, then that's going to drag out the processing time. Okay, so with regard to the direct loans and relief grants, there are 5 bands of businesses within this program. And if you download the actual aid package that we designed, you'll see there's 5 bands. And those bands are based on either the annual revenue for the business or the number of employees per business. There are four small business bands for these direct lending products from BEDC, and 1 medium-sized business band. And the maximum funding level that's approved will range from up to $10,000. So it can be less than $10,000, but up to $10,000 for the lowest band, all the way up to $40,000 for medium-sized business bands. Now, what I will say is that, as I said, the grants will be deployed as part of the overall funding package. So if you are approved, for instance, for $10,000, you will receive that $10,000, but you will only have to pay back $5,000. The grant portion will be 50% of the overall funding package that you are approved for. Also, we are distributing the funds within 3 tranches as an agreed upon schedule between BEDC and the applicant. One is to help us with regard to cash flow, but it's also to help you with regard to cash flow. And there will be a requirement for either rehiring or retaining employees, and that percentage is allocated within the aid package. What I will say, there is a mistake on this slide, and so the grants are 50% of the overall funding and not 66%, so 50%, and I apologize, we will provide a corrected presentation document for you to see. So once again, I reiterate, it is 50% of the overall funding that has been allocated. Once I said the second part of the package, another 12 million, is BEDC guaranteeing loans and overdrafts with our financial institutions. And it could be also other external entities such as the credit union, foundations, other lending institutions that we facilitate a partnership with. Right now, it's available to all small and medium-sized businesses. There will be preferential interest rates for a BEDC guarantee. On a bank loan, we will guarantee up to 75% of that loan. So we will provide the security for those that do not have security, up to 75% of the value of that loan. And our maximum guarantee value is $300,000. For overdrafts, which is a new product that we have created for this COVID-19 relief, BEDC will also guarantee up to 75% of the overdraft value. And in this case, our maximum guarantee value will be $50,000. So we will provide a $50,000 security, or up to a maximum $50,000 security in order for you to secure that overdraft. Now, depending on the value of the overdraft or the value of the loan, our guarantee will go up and down accordingly. The loans and overdrafts are available island-wide to all small and medium-sized local businesses. The repayment terms on the bank loans are for 5 years, and for the overdraft, it is 18 months. we are prepared to have our guarantee in place for those terms. On an overdraft, if for some reason the business is having challenges in repaying it, then at some point the bank may say, we'll convert this into hard debt and transfer that into a loan, of which then BEDC would offer its guarantee for that loan if needed. And for guarantees of loans and both overdrafts, the processing time for us is 15 business days upon a receipt of a complete application. 15 business days. Of course, we understand that businesses need to have access to cash or support financial funding as quickly as possible. So that would be the maximum processing time. And of course, we will endeavor to get that done faster than 15 business days. I just want to quickly talk just briefly about what it will cost to access these two products or these types of funding. And so for the direct loans and relief grants that BEDC is providing, we have slashed both our application fee as well as our interest rate. And so you will see the differentiation between what type of business you are. But at the end of the day, this is a very affordable product to access. We have also removed our credit check fee. So BEDC ourselves, we will take on that cost for businesses and sponsor that cost. Now, what I will say, paying the fees should not hopefully be a barrier to accessing the direct relief from us. And so if it is an issue, we can also incorporate that fee within the loan part. And so you can just amortize it over the length of the loan from BEDC. This slide just shows the fees that will be charged for us guaranteeing any bank loans and overdrafts. And as you see, it's a sliding scale based on the level of guarantee that is required and the length of time that the guarantee will be in place. It also segments out those guarantees based on whether or not the funding is fully secured or whether or not there is an unsecured portion. And what I mean is if BEDC is the only security, so we're providing the 75% and the other 25 is not there, then of course that's an unsecured financing product. If it is 100% secured, i.e. there is additional collateral being offered in addition to what BEDC will provide, then obviously that is a fully secured financing product. I also just want to mention that this is quite revolutionary for BEDC. Historically, we have only guaranteed loans, first of all, and we have only done that up to 50% of that loan value. And for many, many years, our total max was $200,000. So to increase this up to 75%, and also up to a $300,000 maximum guarantee is significant. But BEDC is willing to take on that risk in order to ensure that as many local small and medium-sized businesses that can tread water during COVID-19 and position themselves to come out on the other end can be helped. Also, with regard to the fees for the bank loans and overdrafts, these are the guarantees with the financial institutions. We've also waived our credit check fee. The guarantee and overdraft fee is payable now upon approval of the application, so you won't have to pay it up front. It will be after we approve it. As I said, our overdraft limits are 18 months. And if there is an existing loan with the bank or overdraft with the bank, and a business wants to apply for BEDC support in order to restructure that existing guarantee, then of course there will be a slight extra charge, but that has also been reduced by 50%. So what I want to say in this process is that those that have been successful with receiving the funding have remembered to use the checklist. The checklist is there to make sure that you have submitted everything that's needed in order to have us be able to process that application. So if you look at the handouts that have been uploaded to this webinar, you can download those 5 documents. And as I said, those documents consist of the presentation that I'm giving today, the actual aid package, what it is that we're providing. And then it's the 3 documents, the 3 application documents, which is the checklist, it is the application form, and then it is also what we call a business profile. And I'll go through that a bit. So once it is submitted, you'll email your completed documents to whoever the officer or the person within BEDC has been assigned to you as a client. Our processing time does not start until we receive all of the documents. So if we say 10 business days, those 10 business days start when we receive a complete package. And then you have the option, you can pay for your fee for the product via bank transfer, and your officer assigned will actually provide you that banking information. As I said, if there is an issue with regard to paying the fee, then we can speak about or talk about how to incorporate that in at the end with regard to the loan part of your total funding package. So the funding document requirements are that you have to complete the checklist. There is an application form that must be completed. And if you are a business that has multiple earners, then it has to be filled out by multiple earners. You have to submit some business profile or business plan, and we have a template for that business profile. And as I said, we created this business profile because some businesses were getting hung up on not having a business plan or not understanding how to create a business plan. So the business profile asks key information that we will need you to answer in order for us to get a good idea of your business and where you are. We need what we call personal financial statements, and I'll quickly go through that. And then the last piece of the puzzle is that we need to have some financials with regard to your business. We need to understand how you have been operating. And then we also need a cash flow statement, which will project what you think your revenues will be in the future. All of this information is available on our website. And so the link is up at the top of this page, and I've just circled where you can find it on that page. So anything related to COVID-19, there is a particular page on our website that has all of the supporting documents, documents from other departments that are offering relief, the banks. So it's a web of information that I would encourage anyone to go to. So this is an example of our application checklist. We believe it's pretty straightforward, and it indicates actually all of the information that we will require in order to process this application. The documents have been, we have templates for some of these documents, and we would encourage you to put the date that you have completed it. We will also put the date on the checklist of when we receive it. Everything in yellow is what BEDC does. So everything above the yellow line is what you as the entrepreneur will need to submit with the application. And as indicated, that is available in the handouts part of this webinar. Okay, I just want to very quickly go through the application form. It's a pretty straightforward form. It's 3 pages. For those that are applying for direct grant and loan relief from BEDC, which is the funding up to $40,000, we're asking you to indicate what type of funding that you're asking for, as well as which band of or which size business band do you fall in. Are you in band 1? Are you in band 4? So that we can assess and analyze the application appropriately. It asks for standard information about you as the applicant, or if you are a co-applicant. That's for information about the business. We're asking for business and professional references, and we're just asking for the name and the contact information for that person. It asks some questions about you yourself, which you can check. And then there is an undertaking part of the application form that we ask people to check and to sign that says that you understand everything that you're applying for and that you wish to proceed. So it's the third page. We also want to validate how much funds that you are asking for. And with the application, then we're also going to ask, can you provide some documentation to validate the amount of funds that you are requesting? I'm conscious of time, and I know we have the rest of my team that has to explain the financials, so I'm going to go very quickly through these next slides. I just wanted to highlight that the business profile document, the template that we have created, really asks questions about the business that you yourself own, that you created from scratch. And so really it's just to get from you, what is your business? How long has it been in existence? Where is it located? Who owns it? Who manages? How many staff do you have? What do they do? Why are you requesting this funding? What is the purpose for it? Have you thought about your customer market and competition? Who are they? And especially in this COVID-19 world, who are they now and who will they be in the future? And how you as the business are differentiating yourself from that. And then of course, what the projected revenue and expenses will be post COVID-19 when you're back up and running. So these next few slides just amplify that. So I think that we have tried to make it as simple and easy as possible by asking these questions. And if you as a business just answers the questions, then essentially you will have a completed business plan. We want to know what type of business you are. So not just what industry, but are you incorporated? Do you have a partnership? Are you just a sole proprietor? Where do you operate? Who are your clients? And most specifically, how has COVID-19 pandemic impacted your operations or business? And what plans do you have for the business after and during and after the pandemic? We're going to ask you to do what we call a SWOT analysis. So what are the current strengths of the business? What are the weaknesses currently? What are the opportunities that you see for the business, and especially post COVID-19? And what are the threats? And I would expect everyone to just say COVID-19 is a threat, and that's a weakness. But what are the other weaknesses so that we can help you to build the best business possible post COVID-19? Where are you located? We're going to ask that. Can we have a copy of your lease? What are your lease terms? Have you spoken to your landlord with regard to rent forgiveness or reduction? Do you have any new terms for this lease? We're going to ask you about the ownership, management, and staff. How many employees did you have before COVID-19? How many do you have now? Do you plan to rehire? How will your business continue to operate and all of that? And also, have you applied for the unemployment relief for your employees? We want to know how you will use the funds that are being allocated to help you. And as we said, this program really is to focus on the immediate working capital needs. So payroll, rent, utilities, insurance, fees. What do you need to pay immediately to just sustain yourselves? But we also are conscious that there are some retailers who have already ordered inventory or who may have just received inventory. And so we want to know, what are you going to do with that inventory? How can we help? Or do you have payables with regard to that inventory? How will you retain your customers? Who is your market of customers, and what can you do? What are your plans for that customer base now and after the pandemic? And then, of course, the financial part of your business. So what were your revenues or financials up to the pandemic? What are your projected revenues? What is the gross profit? And so the later part of this presentation or webinar will be helping you to understand why you need financials, how you can build them, how are they useful to your business, and how we will use them in assessing and analyzing your application. The other part is that, of course, the business themselves are the ones that are paying for the loan back or the financing back. Even if it's a guarantee, it's the profits and the revenue from the business that normally would be the first form of repayment. But it's always important to have a second form of repayment if something goes wrong. And so we need to have an understanding of what we call your personal financials. What is your personal financial statement? What is your debt service ratio? What are your expenses and your income? And then how much are you worth? What is your assets and your liabilities? And we have a template that actually helps you to go through this. It's a pretty intuitive one. It calculates for yourself. All you have to do is plug in the information. And this is a sample of that personal financial statement, which is comprised of an income statement and also a balance sheet. And so that's the end of my part of this presentation. I think it took a few minutes longer than I anticipated, but I thought it was important for you guys that are viewing and listening in to understand. And so I'm going to turn it now over to my colleagues, Kalina Otterbridge, as well as Ray Jones, to go through the financial component of the application process. As I've said, there are 5 handouts for this webinar, so please feel free to download. Please ask your questions. And it's our hope that at the end we'll have a bit of time for you to ask any direct questions that you have. I'll give you a caveat that if people are minded that we will probably go to 2:30, because I think we were being very ambitious with a 1 hour, 15-minute webinar on such an important process. So without further ado, let me turn it over to my colleagues and turn them on. Okay, welcome, Kalina and Ray. I'm going to give you guys control just of the keyboard for your part of the presentation, and I'll just go forward for you.
Cool. Okay,
I'll turn myself off too.
Yeah, so good afternoon, everyone. Welcome again. I am Ray Jones, Finance Director at BEDC. And also we have my colleague, Kalina Otterbridge, who assists me in the finance department. This part of the presentation, I just want to say a few things up front. For the people that already produce financial statements, probably have a bookkeeper or an accountant, you might find this part a bit redundant, but I'll just say be patient with us. The whole purpose is for people that haven't been producing financial statements is to give them some guidelines on some things they would need to pull together, as Erika highlighted, that we would need in assessing your application. So also I'm advising, if as we're going through the 3 statements, if there is a question, write it down or send it in the question box. And in the end, we will try to answer as many questions as possible. But if we don't get to actually answer your question, we will answer it later on and send it back to you or back to everybody that's on this webinar. So, financial statements. Most people that don't produce them cringe, become frightful. Oh my gosh. Well, financial statements are important because it actually speaks to the performance and value of your company. It actually helps others to value your company. And it's also a tool that once you stop doing the day-to-day processes, you can quickly refer to them to actually know how your business is actually doing. So as you can see in that brief definition, financial statements are very important to you and to others that might be using them. Next slide. So one of the most important of the 3 statements is the cash flow statement forecast. And basically the definition is forecast is a financial instrument used to plan how much money a company expects to receive and spend over a particular time. So cash flow management is important prior to COVID-19, but it's become even more important as it could be the difference between your company surviving or closing its doors. So you need to understand what the impact of 0 sales or reduced sales will have on your cash. What your cash flow will look like over the next 3, 6, 9 months, and make some decisions that can help your business quickly. Here's just some key other reasons why. Basically, it helps to identify any shortfalls in advance. helps you to be able to strategize how you will pay suppliers, because if you stop paying suppliers, as you know, they will probably stop supplying you. But also one of the key things is also so that you can pay your staff at the end of the week, month, etc. Because once you stop paying staff, they will potentially walk off the job. Other things it helps you with is tracking customer payments, because really the cash is king. We need the cash in to be able to make them payments. And another key reason is if you did any borrowing or have any investors like banks or BEDC, it's important to provide it so we can actually see how we can actually be paid back. So here's the components of the cash flow. So you have beginning cash, revenue, any one-time startup costs, monthly overhead expenses. We have added this portion, COVID-19 relief payments, other uses of company resources like paying the principal portion of a loan. We have non-cash items that you take back out, which is depreciation, and then we should have the ending cash. So on option 5, basically, as we have realized, most people have probably got some bills that they weren't able to get to based on COVID-19. So we're actually included a line in the spreadsheet where that's where you should track making them payments and how your cash inflows can help you make them payments. So just some definitions we will go through real quickly. So cash, as most people probably would say, yes, it's money in hand, petty cash, any money in your bank account, any customer checks that you might have on hand, and then any unutilized portion of your overdraft facility or line of credit. Revenues and sales is income generated from sales for other goods or services that you're providing. Expenses or overheads is a resource consumed in completing a process that does not contribute directly to the end product. It's a cost that relates to an operation of the company as a whole. Example, insurance, rent, and telephone expenses. Other components is non-recurring costs associated with setting up a business, such as professional fees, buying equipment, and inventory. Also, the term loan. If you have a loan, basically you should track this on the cash flow statement, and it breaks out the interest rate and then the actual the amount of loan that you are paying on a monthly basis. And if your company needs money for working capital, equipment, or needs to pay owed debt, you would need a term loan. So part of this product is a loan portion, and basically this is where the term loan would play an important part of flowing through the cash flow statement. So what we have here in front of you is a filled out cash flow statement where at the top line is the beginning cash. As we stated earlier, any cash, any amount in your bank account, potentially unutilized portion of your overdraft, or any checks you have on hand that you need to deposit. So that's what will go in this cell at the top. In this next section, this is where you will track your revenue or sales. So basically, the sales that you expect to actually come in during that month, that's what will go in this cell. The next cell is if you are successful in receiving any loan funding or investment funding, that's what you should populate in this cell. Let me just point out, you can have more than one revenue or sales stream, so you can expand the spreadsheet out to include those revenue streams so that they're all captured individually. So this section here represents the total cash inflows from above. This next section From this cell to the bottom is all what we will call expenses and overheads related to running your business on a month-to-month basis. And basically, we would ask you to populate those cells with maybe some historical information as your guidance for those overheads, and taking into effect any changes you will be making because of COVID-19, by maybe reducing some of those overheads by negotiating reduced rates or deferral payments with various vendors. So as we come to the bottom of this section, that will total up all the outflows, and then in the end should give you your net cash position for the month. This balance automatically populates into the top of the next month, and then you will go through the same process for each month. What we also would like is on the bottom of the spreadsheet, you could potentially tell us what your assumptions was behind your revenue or sales generation. It would help us to understand how realistic your assumptions were. So we basically do not just want round numbers and don't have no understanding, because that's going to lead us to be having to ask additional questions. So the more information that you can provide, it just helps us to speed up the processing time for your application. Go to the next slide. So basically, this is a blank template that we will be sending out with the actual package itself. And basically, everything in yellow, you need to input information, and everything that's in blue is formulas. You don't need to amend. And basically, if you fill this out as we spoke to in the prior, sharing in the prior sample, then you will be giving us a document that we can use to assess your application. So at the bottom, there is a key that actually speaks to what we just spoke through, which tells you how to populate the cells so that you can have a complete and quality cash flow statement to submit with your application. So I'll turn it over to my colleague Kalina to go through the income statement, and then I'll be back just to go over the balance sheet.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to be dealing with the next section, which is definitely also an important part of preparing financial statements for your business, and it's the income statement. An income statement is a report that shows the flow of revenues and expenses over a given period of time, typically a month, a quarter, or a year. Next slide. The income statement is a summary of management's performance as reflected in the profitability or lack of it of an organization over a certain period. It itemizes the revenue and expenses of past that led to the current profit and loss and indicates what may be done to improve the results. So basically, kind of what Ray just showed you with the cash flow statement, the income statement goes through the same sections, but it's showing you what's actually happened for that time. Whereas with the cash flow forecast, it's projections over the next year. The income statement shows you all the revenue that you brought in on a monthly basis and all the expenses that you paid on a monthly basis for that past year. So the three different sections of an income statement are the revenues, the expenses, and the net income. The revenue, as previously stated, is the income generated from the sale of goods or services. The expenses or the overhead is a resource consumed in completing a process that does not contribute directly to the end product. It's a cost that relates to an operation or the company as a whole, which includes things like insurance, rent, telephone, advertising, all those things that are considered expenses or overhead to run the business. And then you have your net income or loss. So often it's referred to as the bottom line. Your net profit or loss is calculated by subtracting your company's total expenses from your company's total revenue, thus showing what the company has earned or lost in a given period of time. The income statement also has a component of it, which is the cost of goods sold. To get your net income or loss, it's your revenues minus your cost of goods sold. So your revenues, we already spoke about, is all your money that's coming into the business, which through whichever streams, as many streams as you have. Your cost of goods sold is your costs that are directly related to the business. So if you have someone that has salary, and you may have, they're working actually, say, somebody's doing maintenance, and they're actually supplying that service, their salary would go towards cost of goods sold, or you have shipping and duty costs, because that cost has to do with the sale of the product. That's what's cost of goods sold. But if you have someone's salary that's advertising, that has to do with the overall business, but not necessarily has to do with selling the good, then that would be in expenses. So that's how you would be able to tell. If it's directly related to the business, it's cost of goods sold. So your revenues minus your cost of goods sold minus your expenses gives you your net income or loss. So we have a sample of an income statement. It looks kind of the same as a cash flow. There are different ways that you can present it, but for the immediate future right now, if you don't have someone that's actually preparing your books for you, or this is something that you need to prepare, this is an easy way of being able to show your income received less your expenses, and then that will give you a profit and loss. So you would start off with your beginning cash balance, whatever's in your bank account at the beginning of the year before, or whenever your financial year ends, and then you would show all your revenue coming in, your actual revenue for each month that's actually coming in, and then you would have your total income at the end of that month. And then at the bottom portion, so this part would be your cash balance that you're starting off with. This section would have all your revenue for each month, and then you would have your total income. The next section would be all your costs. So if it's a business that just started within the year, you may have your startup cost. You would have all your expenses that you have paid on a monthly basis, and then you have your total expenses. So if you take your total income away from your total expenses, and then for that month, you would show your profit or your loss that you would have made for that month. And so on a monthly basis, you would be able to see what your business is earning or losing on a monthly basis. And then you can also be able to do a year end, which is show your balance. So the total, it doesn't show it here, but you can also do a total. So you can see your total revenue for the year, your total expenses for the year, and this is how much your business actually made at the end of the year. Next slide. And then I'll turn it over to Ray that will finish up with the balance sheet.
Yeah, so basically in the prior two sections, as you can see, if you use the template, it's pretty self-explanatory. And these are just tools that we have provided. And it's basically for people that don't already generate their own financials and they didn't know where to start. So these were just some tools that we provided and we're going through today. So I will continue on with the balance sheet. And the balance sheet is a status report that shares the information about the company's resources at one given point in time. The balance sheet basically speaks to the worth of your business, and it's very important in us assessing how we can help you going forward. So a balance sheet is a financial statement that summarizes a company's assets, liabilities, and shareholders' equity at a specific point in time. These three balance sheet segments give investors an idea as to what the company earns and owes, as well as the amount invested by the shareholders or owner. The three main components of the balance sheet is assets, liabilities, and shareholders' equity. Assets are the resources that a business uses to operate its business, such as cash, inventories, land, and building and equipment. Basically, assets are any items of value earned or controlled by the business that contributes towards generating revenue. Assets can be categorized as either current or long-term. So current assets are items that are expected to be consumed or converted into cash within the next 12 months. So the most current asset obviously would be cash, but you have things like accounts receivable and inventory that could potentially go in that section. And based on the definition, we're expecting to collect our accounts receivable within the next 12 months. In fact, we should be collecting them within 30 days. And hopefully, if the inventory turnover, that should all be turned over within 30 days as well. So there's some ideas of some of the items that go in the current asset section of the balance sheet. And here's just a further explanation of other items: cash, marketable securities, accounts receivable, inventory, prepaid expenses. So long-term assets are items that are not expected to be consumed or converted into cash within the next 12 months. And the next slide, yes, will speak to that, is long-term securities, fixed assets, which is land, any equipment, and intangible assets that include non-physical but still valuable assets such as intellectual property and goodwill. Liabilities are the financial obligations or debts of the business and includes claims that creditors have on the business resources, such as accounts payable, bank overdrafts, provision for employees, annual leave, long service leave, tax liabilities, and any loans payable. Essentially, liabilities are amounts owed by the business to external parties and are categorized as either current and long-term, similar to the asset section. Similar to the asset section, current liabilities are those that are due within 1 year and are listed in order of due date. So we have a current portion of your term, long-term debt, any bank indebtedness, any interest payable, your normal overheads of rent, taxes, utilities, any wages, or any customer deposits for any jobs. I'd just like to highlight, people might be saying, well, why would a customer deposit be a liability? That deposit is not yours until you actually provide the good or service. So make sure you take that in hand, because I know in a tight cash flow situation and we're desperate, we will probably can potentially misappropriate those deposits. And another part of current liability is dividends payables to others. Long-term liabilities are due at any point after 1 year. Some examples is the long-term part of the loan you might have, the interest and principal, any pension fund liability, and any deferred revenue. And deferred revenue is revenue received in advance but will not be earned in the current year. Shareholders' equity. The shareholders' equity is the residual interest in the assets of the business after liabilities have been deducted. It's the net worth of a business and equals the difference between assets and liabilities. Equity represents the amount belonging to the earner once all financial obligations have been met. And some things that go in this section is the shares that you would have used to start the business, any contributions, additional contributions that was made maybe by the owners or partners, or any shareholders. Retained earnings is all the profits earned in prior years, and these profits can be reinvested in the company. So sometimes people might say, I have all this retained earnings, but I don't see it in my bank account. And most of the time it's in the other areas in the asset sections of the balance sheet where they might have bought equipment like vans and things like that. And then basically the last part of the shareholders equity section is the net income loss, and income is earned or lost in the current year. So if you come to any of our classes, this part here I'd like to talk about, basically we include it for the definition, but we really try to have winners. So we really encourage net income and try not to spend too much focus on loss. And I know some people in the audience are probably saying, I'm probably more on the lower side than the income, but that's what we're here to assist you and to right the ship, especially during these stressful times like COVID-19. So here's just some equations that speak to the balance sheet and what you will see regardless of how we lay it out. The balance sheet should balance. It's right in the name. So the assets equal liabilities plus shareholders equity. Assets minus liabilities equal shareholders equity. Assets minus shareholders equity equal liabilities. So if you have a balance sheet and it doesn't balance, then you would know you actually have a problem. And what we have produced here is a sample balance sheet for people that might not have seen one. So in the current asset section, you would see it speaks to cash, any accounts receivable. In the fixed asset section speaks to land and building. In the liability section, we have current again, which speaks to accounts payable. And in the long term asset section, it highlights a mortgage potentially one might have or any loans that one might have. And then in the last section, the equity section, as you spoke to, retained earnings, share capital, and net income. We're not saying that your statements need to look exactly like this. This is basically samples to give you some guidance if you haven't already been producing your financial statements. The financial statements have to become very important to you if they haven't been important to you to this date, because basically these are the tools you're going to need to actually navigate in running your business, and they become more essential when we are in stressful times like COVID-19. So I would encourage you, if you find this a bit overbearing, that maybe you reach out to a bookkeeper or maybe a family member that might have some of this background to actually help you to pull these together. Some things that you could use just so for our purposes is maybe use your bank statements and just basically track all the incomings and the outgoings so you can actually put the financial statement package together, which would be the net income and balance sheet. And then you can use that data to actually start working on your cash flow forecast. And then you would have a very quality information to put in your application that would help us to process it in a very effective and efficient manner. So I know that was rather quick, but we try to leave as much time in the end for any questions to ask. And so we open the floor up to questions at this point.
Okay, well, thank you, Kalina and Ray, for that. As Ray has said, that may be a bit overwhelming, but really understand that we want to help you not only just get through this application process, but also position your business for success post COVID-19. And so whatever we can do to help you to understand the financials a bit better, put them together, give you access to resources to help you in that, we are more than prepared to do. But we thought it was important for us to go through this financial part, because this is the part where we see a number of applications before COVID-19 and even during this time get hung up. And then it just stretches out, and then people get frustrated. So we wanted to give you as much information as possible, try to make it as simple as possible, and then give you an opportunity to ask questions now and even in the future. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look to see if anyone has their hand up with regard to asking a question, and give you an opportunity to answer. I see a few people's hands up, so let me just go down. Okay. So I see a question from Steve Bull. And what I will ask the audience to do, if you are not asking a question, if you can put your microphone on mute so we can control the background. But Steve, do you have a question? Okay, we'll move on. Troy Lewis, do you have a question?
Yes, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Good afternoon. Yes, we can. Yes, good afternoon.
Okay. First of all, thank you for putting on this seminar. My question is there any limitations to what the funds can be used for? I know we talk about COVID, and most of it's really about helping to be able to pay for employees and pay your bills. But what about us moving past COVID and using funds to promote the business? Because as we know, when we start a business, it's almost going to be like starting your business back over and trying to get all your clientele to come back, or even new clientele to try to, get your business up and running. So can that money also be used for things like that? So forward marketing, upgrades to try to establish different looks within your business or whatever. Is that also a possibility?
Yeah, so that's an excellent question. So the $12 million aid package is specifically for helping businesses tread water and stay afloat right now. So the immediate need is the payroll, rent, utilities, insurance, immediate overhead. Since we have received this 12 million, we have transferred the funds that we ourselves inside BEDC had allocated and went to the public on March the 20th to say that we would put towards the COVID relief package. We've now moved those funds back to our ordinary loan products, and so businesses can then apply for those loan products or those financial products for new startup or ventures post COVID-19. If I'm being honest, I really believe that there potentially will be some additional funding specifically for stimulus outside of what this 12 million will be. But obviously we have to get businesses to a sustainability place right now. The other thing is that you would have known that back on March 20th, we announced that we also had allocated some funds, at least $100,000 for businesses to access with regard to the things that they will need to go forward. So marketing, e-commerce platforms or virtual market platforms, marketing, accountancy, and legal. And those funds are really to help to right-size businesses post COVID-19. So that's a separate fund of money, and we're just now trying to figure out how best to distribute that kind of support, funding, and package and resources to businesses to help them to right-size. So as I said, to summarize, we have this COVID-19, which is the package to sustain you, right, to help you to stay afloat. We have our ordinary product from BEDC that will help you for new startups, new items, and even, I would say, pre-COVID-19 debt consolidation. And then we have another package of funding or funds. I'm not going to say funding, but access to resources to help businesses to right-size themselves post-COVID-19.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I have a question from Wesley Trott. Wesley, you have a question? Wesley Trott? Hi, Wesley.
Can you hear me?
Low. I can hear you low. If you can just turn your mic up.
Actually, a couple times you can go.
Yes, we can hear you a bit now. Do you have a question?
Yes, please. Good afternoon, and thank you once again for this presentation. Just had a real quick question. I don't have any of the links to the documents in front of me that was mentioned at the start. The five or so, the application form and so forth. So I don't have anything to look at right now. I'm just going off of what Ms. Outerbridge and Mr. Jones had mentioned in regards to the financial statement part. There was a section or a requirement to submit personal financial statements. So I'm just looking to find in the case of sole proprietorship or some level of partnership, to what degree of detail, when I go to those persons to request that information, the first thing they're going to ask me is, well, how in detail, how much of my personal information do I need to submit? So I'm just trying to get an idea of what I can communicate with regards to what I guess is included on the form itself. How sensitive that information, sorry, not how sensitive, how complete that information would have to be before we get to a point where persons may not want to disclose anything further than what's on the form.
Ray, you want to answer that?
I struggled to hear what he is actually stating, actually, but I think it's just of how much information is needed on these forms. These forms have basically been mirrored similar to the banks, so we aren't asking for any more information than the bank would ask for, and it's actually needed because our programs have always been based on a needs basis, so that the people that really are in need of the funding have access to the funding. If people have other means of being able to do some of the things that's needed to sustain their business, then they should use their needs so that we can use our small pocket of funds for the people that don't have any other means. So all this information is important for us to make that assessment.
If I could just, I think also I heard about how much information is needed and about the confidentiality of the information. So the personal financial statement, I just have it up on the screen. So it consists of an income statement and a balance sheet. It needs to be filled out by all of the earners of the business because the earners themselves are applying for the financing. But on the confidentiality part, in our act, I mean, if we breach confidentiality, then of course we are subject to penalties and liabilities. And so, for the history of BEDC, we take confidentiality serious. We will never disclose what is happening with an individual business with regard to their application to us, the status of the application, or who even has applied. What I will tell you though is that because we have received this 12 million, we do have to provide some data to the public. So what we will be providing is, the number of applications received, how many were approved, what the total amount of funding was pledged, what the breakup was between loans and grants, and then what industry, and also, how many employees were impacted or were in that industry. So that's the type of information we will be providing to the public. But with regard to the specific detailed information for your individual business and who earns it, that will never be divulged. And I can tell you the people that we have helped, the thousands of businesses that we have helped to date, I think people will be hard pressed to know who they are unless they agree to some type of promotion that allows them to be publicly visible. Hopefully that helps, Wesley.
Yes, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Okay. I see Steve Bull has his hand up. Steve, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. I'm just wondering, can these tools be used for nonprofit organizations? So, yeah, for I'm involved in a nonprofit, and so it's charitable work. Can it use these same loans, etc.?
Oh, okay, the loan. So the loan product itself is only applicable for for-profit entities. We've had a number of charities actually ask us that question. But our act, the Bermuda Economic Development Corporation Act, has been very specific since its establishment that we only provide financial products for businesses, which are for-profit entities that exist for profit-making purposes. Now, I mean, COVID-19 is obviously a, unbelievable, unprecedented event that's impacted the world. I can tell you that we have been having discussions with other entities, private sector entities and charitable entities. And so there may be the opportunity for funds to help the nonprofit sector that's been deployed by charitable foundations that they may want us to be able to disperse on their behalf to nonprofits. But right now, the $12 million aid and the $12 million guarantee is only for-profit entities.
Okay, thanks. And I guess the loss of potential revenue is really what everybody is talking about, protecting and keeping the lights on for now. But a lot of that would have been projected revenue, and that's what you want us to hopefully be able to cite in some of this documentation, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Colleen, if you want to add to that, but what I will say is it's the projected revenue in a post-COVID-19 world. And really what we're looking for is for businesses to anticipate what that may look like, which, I mean, it's but also how they have pivoted their business to actually take advantage of opportunities that may present themselves or to be able to operate in a new and different way. Lena, did you have anything you want to add to that?
I mean, I guess you definitely stated it, but I would say the best, like basically what you said, everything that whatever you had done in the past would be calling the information. You can see, as Ray stated, look at your bank statements and get that information, what you've brought in, what's the income to what's expenses. And then once that year is completed, or however long you're in business, then you can always use that information to do a cash transaction over the next coming periods. And as far as COVID, it's basically, what's happening now and what information you have to be able to take you past the COVID.
Thanks.
Okay,
Hopefully
thank
that
you very
answers
much.
your question, Steve. Thank you. I see Deidre Annette wants to ask a question. Deidre?
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I have a few questions. Unfortunately, I came in a half an hour late. But the first question I wanted to ask was, is there a deadline to get this information in?
No, there is not a deadline. So we will be taking applications for, for at least for the immediate future,
Okay.
and for as long as we have the funds available to help businesses.
Okay, and then the other thing is, I heard Mr. Jones talk about the asset of knowledge. I can't remember what it was called on the balance sheet, but so I wanted to find out how do you input that into a balance sheet if you're using your knowledge as an asset, which is something that I do.
No, it wasn't your personal knowledge. I think you're looking at the part of intellectual property
Yeah.
or
Oh,
goodwill.
okay.
Yeah.
Um,
So it's not your personal knowledge, no.
Intellectual
Right.
property and goodwill. Okay.
Yes.
Could you
Okay.
explain that?
Let's see, best. Well, goodwill. Okay, if normally goodwill comes about if one is buying a business, and basically the previous owner is saying, you know, I'm giving you a turnkey solution, and based on all the profits and things that I've acquired over the years, I believe the company is worth the balance sheet plus all the sweat and tears I've done in the past, and they put a value on that. And they normally call that goodwill. And that goodwill is reassessed on a yearly basis, because if the business still isn't operating the same as when you bought it, then it actually gets marked on. That's putting it in a layman's term. Hopefully you can understand that.
Yes.
Intellectual property. Trying to think of a layman's way to explain that.
Can I tell you, can I just say something real quick while you're thinking?
Yeah, sure. Good, no
I just
problem.
wanted to be sure that it wasn't the information that I was using to help my clients.
No.
Because if I'm not in the business, then the business will go kaput.
I get that, but no, that's not it.
That's fine then. I'm satisfied with your answer already.
Yeah, but I'm trying to think of something that's easy for people to understand when it comes to the intellectual property. So probably before we get off, I'll come up with a kind of easy, understandable example.
So just to go through what you're saying about your knowledge, that would be more your income. So what you charge your client for the work that you do, what's your billable hours? That would be more along that lines of, if you wanted to compile your cash flow statement and you wanted to know what your revenue would look like, that would be more as far as your knowledge.
Okay. And then just one last one. So just prior to, well, back in March, I was told I have to vacate the premises because the businesses I rent from is actually expanding themselves. And so I would have to find another location. Is that something that this stimulus could help with? I mean, is that part of the going forward?
Yeah, that's a unique question. I mean, I would say that if you weren't asked to vacate the property, you would actually be in a location to have to run your business. So the fact that you have to move from one property to another doesn't negate the fact that you would still have this expense. The fact that you don't have a property doesn't mean that you're still not running the business. So you would still have some immediate needs with regard to rent, payroll. So yes, I would say it could be applicable.
Okay. I think I'm done. Thank you very much.
Thank you for answering your question. I see Maxine Famous. You have a question, Maxine?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon.
My question is, would an annual set of financial statements suffice as opposed to month to month?
Oh, the question that Maxine asked, would a annual financial statement do as opposed to a breakout of month to month financial statements?
Yes, annual statements are acceptable. We just laid out the month to month. That's for people that probably have never put together the statements before. So they will probably have to go back through the bank statements on a monthly basis to actually come up with an annual understanding of the net income.
Okay, so an annual for 2019 would do.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I see Juanita Jones. Juanita, you have your hand up?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
And thank you very much, Rika, Ray, and Kalina. Listen, I had a file that I had opened last year, and it's still pending.
Sorry, excuse me. Someone has their microphone on in the background. If they can just turn that off. Sorry. Continue, Juanita. We just have feedback. Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. I have a file that was open last year, and it would still be the same request with the COVID-19 program. And I did pay all the fees, etc. Would I be able to bring that forward and use under this program the same file that I had opened, because it would be for the same thing? It would be for the same thing that I requested. Would I be able to use that?
We will look at the
update.
Yes, so we would look at the file and request any updated information, and yes, you could. I think we would have to look at the time frame, but if it's under a year, we can transfer over the funds to the application fee that you would have for this. So yes, essentially yes, we'll work with you on it.
Hi, Rika, it's Jamila. I'm asking a question on behalf of.
Sorry, Juanita, did that answer your question? Okay, I'm just gonna turn you off, Juanita. Okay, go ahead, Jamila.
Yeah, Esther had asked Ray to repeat what he said when he was reviewing the cash flow about not rounding amounts.
Yeah, that's a good question.
So what was the question, Jamila?
You mentioned something in your presentation about not rounding amounts, and
so basically in this cell where you put your revenue, we're not just looking for just any numbers to be put in there for the exercise, but we actually would like to have the background assumptions as to how you came up with these revenue numbers. So, just don't randomly select numbers and put them in there like $5,000, $10,000, and then we would have to come back to you to say, well, what makes up this 5,000 or 10,000? So at the bottom here is where you can kind of use this guide to make your assumptions, which should then feed up into this revenue number up at the top. So how many widgets you need to sell a day, per week, per month to actually get to that number, to just give an example.
Okay, so we're at 2:23. We're going to go another 7 minutes until 2:30. If there are any other questions that wish to be asked. And so what I just wanted to highlight while I look to see if there are any hands up is that we do have handouts. So please download the handouts prior to exiting the webinar. If not, you won't be able to download them or access them. We would have to email them to you. There is a fair amount of written questions, and Jamila has been actively responding to those questions, which has been great. We will send you both the questions and the answers, as long as they don't contain any personal information, but we will send that to all of the everyone that's on the webinar, or those that have registered and not able to attend. As I said, we really wanted to do this webinar because the main areas that applicants get hung up on is in the financial part. The other thing is that people just do not submit complete applications, and then we have to go back and forth, and that just stretches out the process. What I will say that if you have a question and you've been assigned an officer, please, ask the officer as many questions as you have, because that officer is there to help you through this process so that you can be, approved and we can deploy the funds as soon as possible. trust me, we do not want to be sitting on this 12 million. I fully expect to deploy the entire 12 million in order to assist businesses through this process. But you know, you have to provide the information. You have to answer the questions that we're asking, because you know your business better than anybody else. And so basically, you're telling us how you have made this business successful, how it outshines any other business, and how you now need that funds in order to continue this great business. You know, we don't know your business, and so we can't help you if we don't know what we don't know. Any other questions? Kalina, Ray, do you have any final thoughts in this last 4 minutes of the webinar?
Yeah, I did come up with some examples of intellectual property, and it's things like patents, trademarks, copyright, trade secrets, things like that have a value. So that's what that section will cover in the balance sheet. So hopefully that was helpful to Judith, and then actually anybody else that wasn't sure what it was.
Okay. I see John Lee has his hand up. So John, do you have a question? Hi, John. We can hardly hear you if you're speaking.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good. We have financials up until September 2019. Will we have to augment that up to the end of the year? Like, how recent do these things have to be?
When is your year end?
I'd have to ask my bookkeeper, Kalina. I'm sorry about that. But I'm in discussions with them now.
If you have, like, just to say, if your year end is up into December, then you should be able to at least provide us with financials from January to December for the full year, because we're at least 4 months in. And then if they're able to, they can do, when you do your projections for this year, you can do your actual from January to March, and then your projections from April for the rest of the year. So,
Yeah, that'll be fine. Yeah, because I mean, we're gonna have to, completely revise our cash flow projections. But just in terms of our authenticated type of financials, we're good up until September. I just need to let my bookkeeper know whether we want them up until, well, we need them up to December.
And you could even provide, like, if you have like the regular financial statement, the income statement and balance sheet, you can do for the 9 months, and then provide the information for the rest. If they're not able to get it, the 3 months completed within a time period, you can provide the 9 months or whatever that period is, and then provide us the information for the rest. So the cash flow may be from October to March as actual, and then the balance, the projections, but just depends on what you're able to get from your bookkeeper.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you. Yeah, we don't want to make it onerous, and apologies if it sounds onerous. Really, this should be a seamless process, but as I said, we'll work with you businesses to kind of get through the process as best as possible. I see a hand up from Sherry Swan, so I think Sherry will be our last question for today. So Sherry. Just turn your mic on, Sherry. Sherry, do you have a question? Sherry Swan?
Yes. First off, let me say thank you for this very informative webinar. I have a query. Our business was actually placed on the essential services list recently. And this week, because it's being used so much, we had a malfunction with one of our equipment, and we actually need to buy equipment. Now, I know you said equipment purchases actually falls under loan, but because we're on the essential service list and our particular equipment malfunctioned during COVID-19, can we qualify for the grant loan? That's my query.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So, I think that's an important one to ask for the last question of the day. So yeah, there are some exemptions or caveats. So if you are a business that is providing something related specifically to a COVID-19 need, like an essential service, then you can apply for the funds for capital items and even potentially inventory items, because there are some businesses that are importing inventory specifically to assist with COVID-19 purposes. That may be a grocery store or pharmacy or a gas station. I mean, who knows? Or it could be even healthcare, health products, the personal protection equipment that's needed to help with this COVID-19. So we are, we are flexible to make some exemptions with regard to this loan grant component. But it really, you have to prove that it's a specific essential COVID-19 need at this moment in time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So it has been very gratifying to see everybody tune in today. We know that we will have to continue with these webinars and online information sessions just to be able to let every business know what's available. What I will say is, outside of just this COVID-19 funding package, there is just a realm of products and services that BEDC can provide your business. And I would say the last slide in the presentation really speaks to this. We have a survey that we'd like as many businesses as possible to participate in. The link is right here on this last slide. And it's also in the package that you downloaded, because we want to hear your feedback and suggestions on what your greatest need is and what you would need in order to get through this time. We provide that data directly to the Premier, to the Minister of Finance with regard to how to look at other types of products or support for businesses. And so we do that on a regular basis. The other thing is that BEDC has a number of other financial products. So we do have our direct loans, and we have a debt consolidation loan, as I mentioned in the beginning. But we also have tax reliefs for businesses that qualify. We have duty deferments. We have a whole product for retailers. And so really, I would encourage anyone to look at our website, download that information, ask us questions, because we see the relief or support that's being provided to businesses, just not this particular package. It will be a whole realm of packages that we want businesses to use and to access relief. So please do that. Kalina, Ray, do you have any final words?
Just same as you. I thank everyone for coming online. I know the financial statement part looks daunting, but as we do our courses, we try to highlight to clients that's basically the steering wheel you need to navigate your business and to make good business decisions. So I would say during this time where you might have a little extra time, this is probably the time you can probably spend some time working on your financials. If not, finding someone that could assist you in putting them together. And then it should be a tool that you use post COVID-19. So do not just work on it because you're trying to get a quality application in. Make this become part of your everyday operation, because I think it would allow you to sustain your business and grow your business in your future.
I would just like to echo on what Ray said. The financials are definitely an important piece of your business. They can show you, things that you need to shift or things that you need to do if the revenue isn't coming in. And we are at BEDC are always here to help you as well. So, you can find someone that has accounts or bookkeeping background that can assist you. But we are also here to answer questions as well to help you out if you have stumbled upon some blocks. So don't, hesitate to reach out to us.
Well, thank you everyone for your time and tuning in. And we wish you all the success, and we're here to help you. Stay safe, shelter in place, and we'll see you on the other side. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.